Hi, my name's Steve. I'm coming to you from deep down in the South Pacific Ocean, a little place with a bunch of islands called New Zealand. Just off the west coast of here is a slightly larger island called Australia, which will give you a little bit of geographic perspective as to where we are. Anyway, I live on the South Island of New Zealand. There are two main islands, the North and the South Island. Obviously, they didn't have ChatGPT when they decided to name the place, so some bright spark came up with the idea of North and South Island. Anyway, the South Island is the larger of the two, and that's where I live, in a place called Wanaka. Wanaka is a small town located on the shores of a large alpine lake. Very, very beautiful place. Used extensively by a lot of people like myself for outdoor recreation, skiing, boating, fishing, hiking, hunting, parachuting, you name it. Everyone does it here. It's one of the adventure capitals of New Zealand. Very close to Queenstown. Some of you may have heard of Queenstown. Very nice place, but I prefer Wanaka. A lot less people. Anyway, I now live here and I'm going to be making a series of videos over the next however long, mainly about the area in which I live and the things that I do here. And primarily I do mountain biking, cross country. I'm too old for the downhill stuff now, broken too many bones. Jet skiing, fishing, boating, hiking, and flying drones. So I'm going to be putting together a bunch of videos about this area and hoping you can tag along and enjoy some of the stuff that I do and give you an idea of what an absolutely amazing place Wanaka is. This first video is about the background of the place, what it looks like, where it is, what the climate's like, the weather, just to give you an idea of what it looks like and what sort of environment that we're going to be looking at, the sort of adventures that we'll be doing. But just to give you some perspective, I'll flip the camera around here and just give you an idea of where we're going to be going in the next few months and some of the stuff that we're going to be seeing. So here we go. This is my trusty dog Russ, the Irish Terrier. He's about to have his 14th birthday, so he's a fairly old boy now, and he loves getting out around the lake. Not so good on the mountain bike, but he loves to get out on the boat. So you may see him in some of our videos as well. What I'd like to show here is how the topography of New Zealand influences the weather significantly. Cross-section from A to B shows on this page a very narrow coastal plain rising rapidly up to Southern Alps, which is around 3,500 metres, followed by some foothills heading east, and then a relatively flat area out to the east coast, which is B. On the west coast, the prevailing wind is from the west, hits the mountains, rises very rapidly, and then descends on the other side, very much like in the Rockies in Canada and the US. You get the hot northwest wind or westerly wind as it comes down from the Alps. The rainfall out on the east coast of New Zealand is around 650 millimetres. In the driest parts down to 350, but on the west coast where we get that orographic effect, you can get areas with up to 12 metres of rainfall in some catchments. Very, very high. New Zealand's a pretty lively place, and the reason for this is because we straddle the Australian and Pacific tectonic plates. These plates are moving in opposite directions, and the country is basically being torn apart by the subduction of the Pacific plate underneath the Australian plate. This gives rise to active volcanoes and a high incidence of earthquakes, some of them very damaging. Other countries on this Pacific rim of fire that New Zealand sits on include Japan, also known for its earthquakes and volcanoes, and in the United States, for instance, California, for its earthquakes, all generated around this movement of the Pacific plate and its neighbours. So this diagram explains why we have earthquakes and volcanoes. You can see here on the right, the Pacific plate is moving down, ramming into the Australian plate and being forced underneath where it melts and then rises up through the crust, forming, in our case, the Southern Alps, and in the North Island, active volcanoes. Makes for very interesting living at times, and as I said earlier, some pretty nasty consequences from some of the earthquakes that we've had here. This satellite photo has some red arrows imposed on it, which shows the direction of the ice flow. You can see one curving from Lake Wanaka across a narrow isthmus into Hawea. And we're going to head up there now to a place called the Neck to have a close look at this area. Now entering an area on Lake Hawea called the Neck. And this is where the lake has a large embayment which comes very close to Lake Wanaka. And as we'll see in a few minutes, the two lakes are quite close together, although Hawea is slightly higher in elevation than Wanaka. Wanaka's slightly lower down. So here we are up at the Neck, just walking along the side of the lake here, looking at some of the schist that's outcropping, the bedrock schist. And as I swing the camera around, you'll see how a lot of it's very smoothed off, and that's caused by the ice coming over from the Neck, from Lake Wanaka, down through behind me and heading off down the main part of Lake Hawea. So if you look here, you can see this beautiful curve cut into the rock here, and it actually carries on over there as well. This shows that probably something like a large rock was embedded in the bottom of the ice and was ground its way across here, basically bulldozing that little curve into the schist bedrock. And there's lots of very small versions of this all across these rock faces, where you can see where smaller rocks have smoothed the path as they've been grinding their way across this exposed bedrock. And what do you know? Just as we're standing around talking about rocks, along swim some nice brown trout, just a few meters from the lake edge. Some action coming up with these guys in the future. Stay tuned. So there's a snippet of the environment we're going to be playing around in. Hope you enjoy the first video, find it useful and informative, and if you do, stick around. We'll show you a lot more stuff coming up in the future. Let's go.